Alrighty folks, welcome to my college basketball free pick video. It's the full video here today for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. Happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. The weekend's right around the corner. We are halfway there. And if you're joining me for the first time here today, my name is Brock Page. I've been dishing out free sports picks on YouTube since 2016. And folks, real quick, I'm 3-0 my last three underdog tier package picks on my premium page. I currently have over 1,900 members who are signed up and active on my premium page as of right now. And with that, let's go ahead and dive right into some free content. We're going to start off with Houston hosting Utah. That's Utah at Houston, 6 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Houston's minus 19.5, totals 135. Now, the Cougs are 14-3 overall. Utah's 11-6. Now, the Utes have also won their last three straight, and they played some pretty good defense during that stretch. The Utes allowed only 66 points a game during that time frame. And as good as Houston's been on defense, well, it's actually Utah who's limiting opposing shooters to just 39% shooting from the field themselves. 7-1 senior Lawson Lovering leads the program in blocks. Keanu Dawes has the most rebounds. And they're facing a Houston squad who failed to cover in their last two straight. Failures to cover against the likes of UCF and West Virginia. Houston went 8-2 to the under in their last 10. Utah saw 8 out of their last 10 stay under the total themselves. I like Utah plus 19.5, under 135. Next matchup, Xavier, St. John's, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. St. John's is minus 7, totals 149. The Red Storms, 16-3 on the year, 12-7 against the point spread. St. John's is also in the middle of a 5-game heater, 9-1 straight up in their last 10. The Red Storms currently 20th in field goals, 18th in defensive boards. Meanwhile, on the defensive end, well, you just can't shoot on these guys. St. John's is limiting their opponents to just 39% shooting from the field, third in the nation in blocks. Zuby Ejiofor has 38 big blocks on the year, team leader in boards. Kadari Richmond has the most steals on the roster, double-digit points a game offensively. And even though there's really not a whole lot to nitpick about when it comes to Xavier on the other side, they do have, problems getting shots off. They're nearly in the bottom 10 in the country in block shots per game. Xavier's last three straight fell under the total, 6-3 to the under in their last 9. St. John's saw 6 out of their last 9 stay under the total themselves. I like St. John's minus 7, under 149. All right, next game, Virginia Tech taking on Georgia Tech, 7 o'clock East. The Yellow Jackets are minus 6 at home, totals 143. Now, Georgia Tech's just 8-11 overall, 6-13 against the point spread. Of course, more recently, Georgia Tech lost their last 4 straight. And they allowed 79 points a game during that span. Meanwhile, on the offensive end, the Ramblin' Wrecks having a tough time from the free throw line. They're making only 67% of their foul shots. They're taking on a Virginia Tech squad who covered in 4 out of their last 6. Covers against the likes of NC State, Miami Hurricanes, and Duke. And this is a Hokie team who's aggressive underneath the basket. Virginia Tech's currently in the top 25 in defensive boards. Toby Lawal leads the roster in rebounds and points. Ben Burnham shoots 47% from three-land. Virginia Tech went 6-3 to the over in their last 9. Georgia Tech saw overs in 5 out of their last 9 themselves. Give me Virginia Tech plus 6, over 143. Next game, Indiana, Northwestern, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Northwestern is minus 6, totals 141. Now, the Wildcats are currently 11-7 on the year. Indy's 14-5. Now, the Hoosiers also covered in 4 out of their last 6. 78 points a game they're averaging this year. Omar Ballo leads the roster in points per game. Mackenzie Mbako averages double-digit points a night himself. Meanwhile, Northwestern dropped 4 out of their last 5 themselves. 79 points a game they allowed during that span. And offensively, the Wildcats have been little threat shooting the long ball. They rank 330th in three-pointers made per game. Now, Northwestern saw unders earlier in the year against Georgia Tech and Illinois. Meanwhile, Indy saw 5 out of their last 9 stay under the line. I like the Hoosiers +6 under 141. All right, next matchup, little SEC action here. Florida, South Carolina, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Florida's -10.5, totals 144. Now, the Gators are 16-2 overall, 13-5 against the point spread. South Carolina 10-8 straight up, 8-10 against the number. And I'll tell you, the Gamecocks have really struggled in the month of January. They lost their last 5 straight, and they averaged only 61 points a game during that time frame. South Carolina is currently 320th in field goals made. And they're facing a Gator squad who's tough to shoot the basketball against. They're 28th in the country in blocks, 5th in guarding the 3-ball. They're also limiting opposing shooters to just 37% from the field. Alex Condon and Ruben Chinleyu, they have 47 blocks between the both of them. They're actually 1 and 2 in rebounds on the roster as well. Meanwhile, Will Richard and Elijah Martin have 66 steals between the both of them. And good news, Richard's been upgraded to probable for the Gators. Thomas and Stute still out for South Carolina. The Gators saw overs against Missouri, Kentucky, and UNC. South Carolina saw overs against Oklahoma, Clemson, and East Carolina. I like Florida -10.5, over 144. Next game, Kansas, TCU, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Kansas is -6, totals 136.5. Now, the Jayhawks are 13-4 on the year, winning record against the point spread. Meanwhile, TCU just 10-7 overall themselves, 6-11 against the number. Not sure if I'm missing the game behind. No, there it is. Now, more recently, the Horned Frogs averaged just 63 points a game in their last 5 outings. Having a terrible time making their foul shots. They're making only 63% of their attempts from the stripe. That's 11th worst in college basketball. Unfortunately for them, the Jayhawks on the other side, they're allowing only 63 points a game themselves. 9th in the country in defensive field goal percentage. Kansas is limiting opposing shooters to just 37% from the field. Hunter Dickinson leads the program in blocks and rebounds. DeJuan Harris has the most steals. And when it comes to offensive production, Kansas is in the top 25 in field goals made per game. And out of 17 contests overall for the year, the Jayhawks saw unders in every single game besides 2. Meanwhile, TCU, they're 65% to the under for the entire season themselves. I like Kansas -6, under 136.5. Next game, where's it at? I think I saw it. Is it earlier? Sorry, I'm getting messed up here with the board. Here we go. Syracuse taking on Clemson, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Clemson is -15, totals 142.5. The Tigers are 15-4 overall, 11-8 against the number. Syracuse just 9-9 straight up, 7-11 against the point spread. The Orange failed to cover in 6 out of their last 9, 75 points a game they allowed during that span. Meanwhile, Clemson, winners of their last 3 straight, 6-1 straight up in their last 7. The Tigers are currently in the top 25 in shooting from the foul line, 17th in shooting from beyond the perimeter. Chase Hunter drills 45% of his long balls, 17.5 points a game. And Ian Shiflin, second on the roster in scoring. Now, injury-wise, Westry and Freeman are questionable for Syracuse. And when it comes to the total, the Orange saw overs recently against the likes of Boston College, Florida State, and Wake Forest. Meanwhile, Clemson saw overs in 5 out of their last 9. I like Clemson -15, over 142.5. Next matchup, Texas A&M taking on Ole Miss, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Ole Miss is -3, totals 141.5. The Rebels are 15-3 overall for the year, 13-5 against the point spread. The Rebels allow only 65 points a game defensively, 8th in the country in steals. Sean Padula has 43 steals on the year. Malik Dia with the most boards. And they're facing an Aggie team who failed to cover in their last 3 straight. 42% shooting from the field for them. And even worse, A&M's currently 328th in three-point shooting as well. A&M went 7-3 to the under in their last 10. Ole Miss went 80% to the under in their last 10 themselves. I like Ole Miss -3, under 142. All right, next ball game. Florida State taking on Cal, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Florida State's -1, totals 151. The Noles are 13-5 overall, 67% against the number. Cal's just 9-9 themselves, 50% against the point spread. More recently, the Golden Bears dropped 7 out of their last 10. All kinds of issues on defense. Cal's currently 330th in defensive field goal percentage. And they're going to have to try and stop a Noles team who averages nearly 80 points a game themselves. Top 30 in free throws. Jameer Watkins averages over 18.5 points per contest. Malik Ewan makes 59% of his field goals, second on the roster in scoring. And out of the Noles' last 8 ball games, they covered the number in all of those contests except for 2. While the Noles saw overs in their last 2 straight, 60% to the over in their last 10. Now, Cal, they saw overs recently against Virginia, Pitt, and Stanford. Like Florida State, -1, over 151. All right, next ball game. Nevada taking on Utah State, 9 o'clock East. Utah State's -6.5, totals 142. The Aggies are 16-2 overall, but they do have a losing record against the number. Meanwhile, Nevada, 11-7 straight up, winners of their last 3 straight. The Wolfpack's making nearly 49% of their field goals, 22nd in shooting from three-land. Nick Davidson drills 40% of his long balls, 15.5 points a game. Kobe Sanders averages nearly 15 points a game himself. They're facing a Utah State team who's definitely struggled against the number here recently. They failed to cover in their last 4 straight. They allowed nearly 77 points a game during that span. Now, the Aggies went 60% to the over in their last 10. Nevada saw overs in 3 out of their last 4. I like the Wolfpack. +6.5, over 142. Next game, USC, Nebraska, 9 o'clock East. Nebraska's -5.5, totals 145 and a hook. Now, the Cornhuskers are 12-6 overall, double-digit covers on the year. Meanwhile, USC's 11-7 themselves, but just 7-11 against the point spread. More recently, USC failed to cover against the likes of Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan. And out of their last 5 contests, USC allowed over 82 points a game. And they're facing a Nebraska team who actually rebounds quite well on offense. They're also doing a great job getting to the foul line. They're 31st in the country in free throws made per game. Bryce Williams averages over 18.5 points a game, 91% shooting from the foul line. And Connor Esigian's drilling 41% of his deep balls. Nebraska saw overs in 3 out of their last 4. USC went 8-1 to the over in their last 9. I like Nebraska -5.5, over 145 and a hook. Next game, Georgia, Arkansas, 9 o'clock East. Arkansas is the 2-point favorite, totals 141. Razorbacks 11-7 on the year, but just 4-14 against the point spread. Meanwhile, Georgia 14-4 themselves, double-digit covers on the year. More recently, Georgia covered in 3 out of their last 4. Tough team to score points against. They're 9th in blocks per game, 12th in defensive rebounds. The Bulldogs are currently limiting opposing shooters to just 38% from the field. Santos Cyril has the most blocks. Asa Newell leads the roster in rebounds. They're facing a struggling Arkansas team who lost their last 5 straight. They struggled getting to the basket during that span. The Razorbacks are averaging just 64 points a game during that time frame. And oddly enough, Arkansas saw overs recently against LSU, Oakland, and Michigan. Meanwhile, Georgia saw overs recently versus South Carolina State and Buffalo. I like Georgia +2, over 141. Next matchup, K-State, Baylor, 9 o'clock East. The Bears are minus 12, totals 142. Baylor's 11-6 overall. Kansas State just 7-10. And more recently, the Wildcats lost 8 out of their last 9. Having issues guarding the deep ball this year. They're 332nd in defensive three-point percentage. Now, Baylor, on the other side, they're averaging 81 points a game offensively, top 30 in field goals made. Norchad O'Meara averages over 15.5 points per contest. VJ Edgecombe's second on the roster in points. 5 out of Baylor's last 9 qualifying ball games got over the total. Kansas State saw overs recently versus Kansas, Houston, and St. John's. I like Baylor minus 12 over 142. Next game, San Diego State, Air Force, 10 o'clock Eastern tip-off. San Diego State's minus 13, totals 127. Now, the Aztecs are 11-5 on the year. Air Force just 3-15. The Falcons average just 63 points a game, bottom 10 in offensive rebounds. And when it comes to shooting from the stripe, Air Force makes just 60% of their foul shots. That's third worst in college basketball. And they're facing a San Diego State team who's pretty tough to score against. The Aztecs allow only 62 points a game, 8th in the country in blocks. As a matter of fact, the Aztecs have the second lowest defensive field goal percentage in all of college basketball. They're limiting opposing shooters to just 36% from the field. 7-foot Magoon Guaf has 43 big blocks on the year. Coleman Jones with the most rebounds. And oddly enough, the Aztecs saw overs in 3 out of their last 5. Air Force went 60% to the over in their last 10. Like San Diego State, minus 13, over 127. And with that, we're going to jump into our next and final breakdown for the video. Miami taking on Stanford, 11 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Stanford's minus 10.5, totals 154. And even though Stanford's the clear-cut favorite in this one, they've definitely had problems covering the point spread. They failed to cover in 5 out of their last 8, putting just way too many shooters to the foul line. The Cardinals allowing nearly 16 free throws a game, bottom 5 in defensive free throw percentage. Unfortunately for them, Miami is one of the better free throw shooting teams in the game. They're in the top 25 in free throw percentage, 76 points per contest for them. I like Miami plus 10.5 over 153. With that, folks, now it's time for our quick pick recap. I like Utah plus 19.5 under 135. Army plus 1.5 over 143. I'm 3-0 my last 3 underdog tier package picks on my premium page. Furman minus 9 over 143.5. Robert Morris plus 3 under 145. Southern Illinois plus 1.5 over 136. High Point minus 14 over 162.5. Wright State minus 1.5 over 152. Boston U plus 1 under 131.5. PFW plus 1 over 143. East Tennessee State minus 15 under 143.5. St. John's minus 7 under 149. Lafayette plus 2 under 135.5. UNC Asheville minus 1 over 162. Virginia Tech plus 6 over 143. Indiana plus 6 under 141. Florida minus 10.5 over 144. Kansas minus 6 under 136.5. Old Dominion plus 5 over 137. IU-INDY minus 1 over 145. Coastal Carolina plus 6 over 141. Cleveland State minus 14.5 under 137.5. South Florida minus 1 over 144. Lehigh plus 6.5 over 135. Clemson minus 15 over 142.5. Wofford minus 17 over 134. UNC Greensboro minus 9 under 145. Radford minus 1.5 over 141.5. George Washington minus 1 under 155. Presbyterian minus 2.5 over 140. Drake minus 14 over 130. Temple plus 9 over 134. St. Louis minus 10 under 153. Loyola Chicago minus 9.5 over 147.5. Colorado State -1, under 140.5. Illinois-Chicago -4.5, under 141. Ole Miss -3, under 142. Florida State -1, over 151. Nevada +6.5, over 142. Nebraska -5.5, over 145 and a hook. Georgia +2, over 141. Baylor -12, over 142. San Diego State -13, over 127. Give me Miami +10.5, over 154. And with that, folks, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my premium page. And if you do end up getting a membership here today on my premium site, just a friendly reminder, you're going to get access to that membership every single day for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus, you're also going to get access to all of my cheaper memberships during that time frame, absolutely free. They're going to be included with your membership. That's why I always tell folks, that Gold Club package, it's a full access, all-inclusive membership. Gives you access to every single premium selection of mine, every single package, every single day for the next 30 days. But most importantly, folks, gotta thank you for joining me right here on the free video. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, folks, happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my premium page.